Personal questions about me? Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to another Coffee Time with John. I love coffee. I don't particularly like to talk about myself too much. I share my stories, yes, but I don't talk about John Davis's personal life too much on this channel. But somebody had written me a message and wanted specific questions about me. And so I wanted to go ahead and make this video for them. This is not me being an ego-based guy. This is me, or out-of-balanced ego-based guy. This is me just answering questions that maybe they're trying to go through something themselves, and maybe this is a way that they can get some of the answers that they want as well. First question: how have you become so adjusted given your childhood? That is an interesting question in regards that people, you think I'm adjusted. I am very adjusted. My childhood was rough with my father, and the church was never something that really, it just never felt necessary to me. It just never felt that way, and it terrified me as a child. So, anytime you have something in your life that is scary, you're averse to being there. So it really was not a positive experience for me in any way, shape, or form. And it just it really just knocked me down to very low self-esteem, and it was just a really rough time. And I had become a severe introvert. Could almost never spoke when I'd go to school. People didn't know who I was. Kids didn't know who I was because I never spoke. I was always very quiet. I was shy, as they would say. But I knew if I opened my mouth that I'd be knocked down. So I was I was just very shy and very timid. When I turned 18 and Mom told me that spirituality was a personal journey, it gave me the freedom to say, well, I'm done with that church stuff. And that was huge for me, because then I was like, I get to make my own choices. And as I went through first atheism, which, by the way, when you're subjected to only putting faith in what the world is showing you, it gets very depressing, because the world is designed to show you the worst parts, when in reality the best parts are more predominant, and no one's talking about them because they're normal. But the negative stuff is what they show you all the time. And so atheism can very quickly lead to depression. And then I had a whole bunch of big experiences that changed me. And then at 19, I had what I call my epiphany experience, where I felt Yeshua in my life, and it changed everything. And ever since then, through my 20s, was a big journey of studying everything I could study: Buddhism, Hinduism, Baha'i, Wicca, Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, the big speakers, Neville Goddard. I just went through everything and everyone. Edgar Casey. I went through everything, and I read everything. And when I was reading everything, I was finding commonalities, and it validated most of what my beliefs were, natural beliefs were. Your next question goes, when did I start noticing the dogma in the church? The dogma in the church was, for me, like I said, it was a terrifying place. I was being judged all the time, and so for me, I was never deep into the dogma of it. I was really beaten down by it, and so it was something that I've noticed from childhood. I was afraid of hell and burning in hell and all that stuff, and so to me, it was the dogma of the church started at the beginning. Did you have someone to talk to? No. And she says, if so, who? I had no one to talk to through my childhood about what I was going through. I had an abusive father and a mother who had a total of 6 other kids and was spending most of her time at the church. And I really felt like I was raising myself because I was 10 years younger than my oldest sister, who had already moved out and had a kid. My next sister, sibling, had gone off to Florida with her husband. My brother Michael had his own plumbing business and was off doing his own thing. So by the time my sister went to Florida, she was never engaged with the family. She was always a rebel and just really just not engaged. She was not engaged with us, and still today is not engaged. We hear from her with a phone call at Christmas, and that's what we hear from her. And then my other brother was sort of the golden child to my mother, and he ended up going off and working for NASA and all this stuff, and he was the golden child, and I was not. I was not the golden child, and there was nobody I could talk to in the household, and so I literally felt like I was raising myself. And then my youngest brother came 14 years after me, so he had a whole different experience too. He had the experience of literally being raised by what seemed like they were his parents, but they were old enough to be his grandparents, because my brother's niece is 2 years older than him. But it comes down to, I didn't have anybody. I had no one. I was going through it on my own, and really didn't have my big awakenings until after my childhood. When I was in my 20s and 30s is when I really started having all my big experiences. What is your education? I went to school for architecture, and ended up coming out of school for architecture in 1984, and in 1986 they started using computers for architecture. And so my degree, I never learned CAD. I never learned how to use a computer because it wasn't something we learned. I learned architecture with a pencil and a drafting machine. So it was really, I wasn't going to go back to school and learn CAD because architecture was not something I was really interested in. Architecture was the thing that my mom wanted me to do because she said, "Oh, John, you can draw. You should be an architect because there's money in architecture and there's no money in art." And so I was into architecture. What eventually happened was when I got out of college, I went on the road doing Renaissance festivals, which was the greatest thing for me. Someone drugged me to a Renaissance festival when I was in my 20s, and I was still an introvert, and took me to a festival. He put me in a costume, and that day was a life-changing event for me, because that day, I'm a big guy with a beard, and he had me in this big chainmail suit, and it was crazy. But that day, I got so much positive reinforcement. People wanting my picture. People, it was one of those things that I was just hooked. By the time the next festival season came around, I had my own costume and I was there. It really changed. It made me get out of my shell. And then, in my life, I've had many wonderful people who've just come up and given me opportunities. One of them was a man named John Strukin. John saw me as a patron, as someone walking through the gate and playing a character, came up to me and literally said to me, he said, "I've been watching what you're doing. You're great. Why don't you come on the cast?" And he literally brought me onto the cast after just seeing what I was doing in the street. And then I was a street character, which made me have to literally talk to thousands of people one-on-one all day long. And that broke me of my introversion. I was no longer afraid to talk to people because now I could talk to people as a character. And that was a huge change for me. That was one of the things that changed my life dramatically. But also, the Renaissance festivals are a very inclusive community and a very loving community. And what's very interesting is you will meet people of all different faiths there, and they're all open to talk about it. It's really a beautiful place to go and meet people and get to know, and especially if you're an artist, it's the most artistic community in the world. And theater wise, it is the new vaudeville. So it was very much a beautiful experience doing that. So I guess my best education really was Renaissance festivals. How is your relationship with your siblings since you became unaffiliated? It is a great question. Like I said, I have a total of 6 siblings. My oldest sister and I, we get along great. We're kind of just there, right? We get along fine. My second sister is one of my close friends. I call her multiple times a week, and we talk and we share each other's life, and we're there for each other. My brother Michael, unfortunately, when I was in college, my brother Michael had a car accident and ended up with severe brain damage, and has been dealing with that for the rest of his life. And him and his wife had 2 kids after that, but he struggles. And now, as he's getting a little older, it's starting to go the opposite way right now, and it's kind of a sad situation. But we all learn so much about how to love and how to and who people really are through my brother Michael's experience. The next is my sister Jane, who we would call Peachy, because my father gave her that nickname when she was very, very young. And she had an interesting relationship with my father as well. And he had a name for her, which I'm not going to repeat because it was not kind. And she actually ran away to Florida to get away from everybody, and never came back. And so we talk to her at Christmas, and if we go to Florida, we see her, but it's not like a warm and fuzzy. It's like, let's have some dinner. Okay, thanks. This is done. We're out of here. But that's her choice, and that's the way it is. My brother Eddie, who when I was younger, I remember him being a very funny guy, but he has really gone down the Catholicism route right now, and he basically, when he sees me, it's, "Hey, how are you? Good to see you," and he leaves. He can't look at me directly, and we definitely can't talk spirituality, because he doesn't believe anything I believe, and he thinks I'm deluded, is what he thinks, and that's okay. That's his choice. He can believe that all he wants. And then my brother Jim, I can tell him anything. My younger brother Jim, I can tell him anything. I can share with him anything that's going on, and we laugh and we have a great time. So that's how my siblings are now. My mom and dad are gone, both of them. Mom is right here. I don't keep a picture of my father in my house because it wasn't a pleasant experience for me. So I just don't keep that memory around. So let's jump on and see if there's anything else. Yeah, I think those are all your questions. So how have you become so adjusted given your childhood? When did you begin noticing the dogma of the church? Did you have someone to talk to? If so, who? What is your education? How is your relationship with your siblings since you became unaffiliated? Yep, I answered them all. So I hope that gives you all the answers about me that you're looking for. And I will talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. The John of New channel is solely funded by your generous donations and purchases of private readings and merchandise. To help out, go to johnofnew.com or use the donation link in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.